All right, boom, we are live. Jim Brown, what is up, my friend?
Not much. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I'm excited to be jamming, dude. It's been about a month.
Yeah, it's been about a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Time goes fast.
Yeah. How things been, dude? Been slammed, huh?
Good. Yeah. Actually, been able to train though, so training's back up a little bit, getting in consistently again, and getting back to some respectable weights. Teach the broccoli head kids in there what's up. But
Yeah.
it's been fun.
What are your target goals right now? Like what are you trying to achieve?
Big and shredded, buddy.
Big
Always.
and
Yeah, man, I got a little puppy. Got a little puppy there. So I'm at we've talked about this before where kind of have a comfort zone, and for me, the limit of that is like 13-14% body fat. And then I like to, without killing myself, I can get sub 10-ish, without dying. And I like to live somewhere in between there. And so I'm
Yeah.
definitely at the puppy side of that. So I've been cranking down a little bit, turning everything back on, the meal prep and a little bit of cardio and stuff, going to bed hungry, all the fun stuff, and just lean up a little bit. But training's been great. Everything's working well. I'm not too broken, and putting up some decent weights and reps and sets. So it's fun. It's good.
Yeah. Nice, dude. Yeah, I don't know what it is for me, if it's just I don't know, years of being morbidly obese and ashamed of my body, but like I'm always uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
never
Oh,
get to that,
yeah.
but then I'll see pictures where I'm like, oh shit, like I looked amazing that I wish I could have that, but like in the moment, like I can never find myself appreciating it.
Well, and I saw a picture of you the other day, put up somewhere with you guys hiking or something like that, and I was like, Jesus, you're fucking shredded, man. But I know where you're coming from because as soon as I get down to, close to 10% or something, then I'll go, Jesus, I'm fucking losing all this muscle, which I really haven't. But, it's just that dichotomy of, oh, now I'm too small. Oh, now I'm fat. And it's just, it's fucking life, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everybody does that. I don't think anybody really is like, oh shit, I'm so happy right now with my body. I don't know, but I think that's what keeps us as diligent as we are too. But the way that I just try to manage that is just to have kind of a comfort zone. And as long as I'm in there, I'm okay, everything's all right. Would I like to be leaner? Sure. Would I like to be bigger? Yeah. But this is okay. It's something I can live with. I'm not dying, I'm not killing myself. So it's a fine balance there in your head that you gotta
Yeah.
keep. But
Yeah, I can understand that too. I mean, it is to a point where like, okay, like, I mean, I do, when I say that, like, I guess I'm never satisfied, which I think is a good thing. I don't think that it's a
yeah.
negative thing, but yeah, I mean, it's like summertime, pool time. It's like, dude, like if my abs aren't showing and popping, but when they are, then yeah, then I feel good.
Yeah.
I feel more confident, being out there.
Yeah. It's funny too, man. I'll take leaner any day over bigger, or
Yeah.
fuller muscles or being flat, just because, man, when you put your clothes on, they fit better. Your pants are loose, or mine are loose around the waist, and it just it's a much better feeling. Yeah.
When it creates this illusion of size, I just had a big in-person event, that we were talking about before, offline, and I do these every 2 years, and I mean, because a lot of people see me through Zooms or podcasts, but they don't see me in person, and then you at that event, I mean, numerous people coming up to me of like, dude, you're so jacked, and like, what are you weighing, like 190? And I'm like, nah, I'm like 173 right now, and they're like, no way, right? Like it creates an illusion, I think, of being a lot more jacked when you're just shredded.
Oh yeah. I might have mentioned this before, but yeah, when I used to get ready for a contest or something, my shirts would just, they'd start out tight, and then I do a 20-week diet to get ready, and about halfway there, man, shirts were starting to loosen up and feel bad, and then by the end, you're like, God, the whole time you're working out and everything, except for maybe a 3-minute window during the workout where you actually pump before you lose it all and it goes away. But you feel awful in clothes, and then you take your shirt off, you're like, oh, okay, I look pretty good, because you can see everything, and it gives that illusion that you're bigger, but you're like, I'm swimming in my 2X shirt or whatever it is. It's just such a mind fuck, man, and it's always there. But to your point, the leaner you are, the bigger you look, and I feel better. But there's that whole thing. Then if you start losing weights or you start losing reps on your workout, then that messes with you too. So
Yeah.
it's just never ending, man.
Yep. Yep. So, all right, dude. So I've been excited for this because I want to talk to you about, I know we've spent a lot of time with recent podcasts talking about volume and so forth, but I want to talk today about overtraining, or just pick your brain on when it comes to overtraining. So like last week, I had to condense my workout days into 3 days because I had that 2-day event and we went for like 12+ hour days, right? So I condensed every muscle group down to 3 days, but it was like, I found myself, I'm like, oh man, like now I'm training for 90 minutes. And in my head, I'm just like, well, I can't go over an hour. I'm going to start, going catabolic, internally. I'm going to be overtraining. I'm going to start doing damage, and then I was just listening to some podcast clips with Lee Priest and Flex Lewis. Lee Priest was, making comments on there like, oh, these people today just, and I don't want to take this out of context. I haven't heard the full, podcast, but just through the short clip. But it was, something around like so many people today. It's almost like it's a cop out to just, train like a wuss. Only get in and out 40 minutes. Like just this reason, excuse, not overtrain. He starts talking about, and Lee Priest. I mean, he's still an absolute beast. Right? But he was talking about, back in the day, he hit it for 2 hours and then come back for another 90-minute session later in the evening. And, just kind of wanted to go, I guess, pick your brain on, what is too much, what is too little, and like, I mean, what does that look like? I mean, is it, because he brought up some other good points. He was like, look at boxers or MMA fighters. Those guys might train for 9 hours a day, and some of those guys are yoked and jacked. Right? So is it, because I mean, again, it's like the second my workouts, because I would love to do every body group twice a week, but it's very difficult for me with my family and my work schedule, because I have a lot of days where I'm working 16-hour days where it's like doing 2 a days is very difficult. But if I could go up it to, okay, 90-minute workout sessions, well, then I think I could easily get in everything twice a week, so again, just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that topic itself.
Well, this kind of goes back to that podcast we did a little while ago about stimulus and recovery, right? And so you can only stimulate as much as you can recover from. And I first of all, Lee Priest, I met him in person multiple times. One time was that I was working at the Olympia in Las Vegas at either the Pro Lab or the Testosterone Magazine booth, and across from us across the aisle was Lee Priest at some booth. And he's a pretty short guy. I think he might be like 5'2", 5'3", maybe something like that. But he was absolutely the largest human that I've ever seen per his size, right? I mean, he had the most muscle on a human that I think I've ever seen. He was incredible. So, taking advice from him is kind of, I don't know. I don't know how he trained. I never really saw any workouts that he did, just magazine shoots and stuff, but he was an absolute genetic freak. So, he could probably get away with a lot of stuff that people didn't, or other people couldn't. But again, when I was in my prime and when my recovery was supportive of it, my workouts were long too. I would do at least 2 hours, on weights. And then when I was doing 2 days, it looked like an hour and an hour or an hour and a half and an hour and a half because I couldn't get sore. I literally couldn't get sore. And so my volume was very high because, I built up a resistance to the adaptation. I had to stimulate my body a certain way to force it to continue to grow. And I had the recovery ability at the time to recover from it and get ready for the next workout. So, it's an individualized question, right? When you're younger, I think you have a larger gas tank, your recovery's better just naturally. You can process food more efficiently. And I think you can recover from longer workouts, and I think you have the capacity to handle those. Right now, me being 50, trying to cut some fat off my body, not a huge portion right now where I'm not in a caloric surplus where I'm processing a bunch of food and my recovery is a little bit higher. I'm using TRT type doses. And so my recovery is kind of human these days, and I'm 50 years old. So my gas tank just isn't as deep as it used to be. So my training sessions are suited to what I can recover from. And I might do an hour and a quarter in the gym now, especially like on a leg day. It might even be an hour and a half, but that's a lot of warming up and
Yeah.
getting to my sets. So to your point, again, is there a magic number? For most people, I suggest to keep it a little bit shorter. I'd rather have the intensity up there, to where you can stimulate and get out in a reasonable time. But if you had unlimited time, yeah, I would work out as long as you can tolerate and recover from. And so what that looks like again, or depending on the factors that I just listed.
Yeah. Now, does that also though, because I'm guessing like those, 2-hour sessions, there was probably a certain amount of volume that you were doing per body part. You were just able to rotate body parts, and whether that be, I don't know, 16, 20 sets per body part or whatever, that maybe you can get done in 45 minutes or an hour, but it's like stacking then a secondary body part on there that's taking you that time. Like, I mean, is that more of the concern with overtraining, is just overall too much
Well,
volume per body part?
the way that I, now if I'm helping somebody kind of unfuck their routine, or, I do these calls, these consult calls where you pay me for an hour and you send me everything and I kind of detangle everything, and most people that I see are, quote, overtraining, it's because they're not recovering from that, and that could be a multitude of factors. But if you can recover from it, yeah, you can train more frequently. But that's kind of the way that I like to train too. As I like to hit a muscle part more often than not. If you go in, like if I went in and I destroyed my legs and I can't train them for 10 days, to me, that's not as beneficial as stimulating them to where I can work them 3 days later, or maximum 4 days later, and stimulate growth and repeat that. But I think the overtraining comes with people, just not paying attention to that balance between stimulus and recovery. And if you don't, it catches up to you, and then you kind of crash and burn. But it's real individualized. If you're not
Yeah.
sleeping on a consistent basis, and your eating's not to par, and you're not paying attention to your body, then it could be a low volume workout. It could be shit. It could be just a long, tame cardio session. It doesn't matter. You're not prepared for it. You can't recover from it, and it's just going to put you deeper in the hole.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm almost never sore anymore. And it's, and there's, I don't know. I mean, it could just be, I'm probably not going intense enough at this point. Some of it's hard because I'm training by myself a lot, so I don't always have a spotter, for most things that I'm doing. But I don't know what it is there.
Well, if you
But
can, yeah, if you're not getting sore, and I don't like to be, so sore like it sort of the touch, but when you flex your muscle, you can
oh
feel
yeah,
some soreness, and then you can train it again in 2 days. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. But if you're so sore you can't sit down on the toilet, it's good. You're not going to recover anytime soon. It's going to
yeah,
take, it's going to take 4 or 5 days to really be able to recover and train again. And if you go into the gym sooner than that, yeah, you can warm up and kind of get through it and then train, but you're delaying the process even more. And I'm adamantly against that. So it really depends, if you're not training enough, if you're not training intensely enough, you're not getting sore at all. Even when you flex, you can't feel anything. Being sore isn't the end all be all for progression. But if you're also not progressing on your reps or your weights, then I would say, yeah, you need to make a change and or train more frequently,
yeah.
and see if you can do that. But
Yeah, I mean, to your point of what you just said, I mean, that about matches where I'm at. Like I'm thinking of soreness, like, I don't know, back when I was,
oh yeah,
a
you're like,
teenager or whatever,
yeah,
where I was like, dude, I couldn't even like my chest would be so sore I couldn't even grab my seatbelt,
yeah, yeah,
like sore where if you barely poked it, it was like, oh, like intense pain, but
yeah,
like to your point, okay, like after arm, like I did back yesterday, and if I go to, kind of go like that, okay, I can feel it for sure. Like it's,
yeah,
but it's not like that intense, don't touch it, but yeah, if I flex it harder,
Yeah.
it'll just,
Yeah, I trained back yesterday. It was a great workout. And if I flex my back, all the everything that I worked, I can feel it. Is it going to be gone tomorrow? Probably. Is it going to be gone by day 4 when I want to train it again? Absolutely.
yeah. And then, from previous podcasts, but not everybody watches all these podcasts. Um, and I'm making an assumption here, but especially on these longer sessions, I'm assuming that, you're probably pretty strict of making sure that you have kind of your intro workout, like your EEAs. I think you will typically like your EEAs, maybe a little bit of pomegranate juice.
Yeah, if I was, the longer, well, on every workout, I don't like to train with empty blood, meaning I like to have nutrients in the blood, right? So I'm eating before. I have some type of intra workout, meaning it's EAAs or protein drink, whatever, maybe a little bit of carbohydrates, and then I'm eating when I can, sometime soon after the workout. When I was training with higher volume and my recovery was out of control, my recovery was just high as can be, and I was training, these long, heavy volume days on a body part, like every 2 to 3 days for that body part. Yeah, I was eating in the workout. I would first we started playing with baby food, and then I thought that was ridiculous. What is baby food advantage over a fucking banana? No. So you have a banana protein shake or whatever. Bring food and take a break and eat. That's how it was, and then you go back to it. Um, and then as we alluded to in another podcast, what would I do if I was trying to put back on 30 pounds and compete again or something like that? It would be a 2-a-day split. And why is that? Well, that's because I'm stimulating the muscle. I'm going in there, I'm creating an event, I eat, and then I'm creating a second event where I can process more nutrients and food and get the blood flowing again to all my muscle, all my body parts, and get the perfusion of nutrients. And that stimulates recovery too. So I would, the 2-a-day workouts is another strategy to where you can process more nutrients. You can deliver them to all your muscle and your body part with a bunch of aminos in it, and it helps you recover faster. And that's why guys, a lot of times will do 2, and especially if you have that work capacity like I did once, or if you're talking about Lee Priest, where he would train and then go back at night, that's exactly what those guys are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like if I wanted to really pack on some size, dude, I would have to do what you just talked about, like the 2 workouts a day. Cause that's my hardest part, dude, is getting in enough food. I don't think people
Yeah.
realize how hard it is to eat the amount of food. I mean, so many people just have this assumption it's all about the drug. And it's like, yeah, I don't, I'm not so sure
Well,
on
and
that, man.
that's really interesting when you show a picture of like, Mike O'Hearn, or maybe that's a bad example, or somebody who's just in an elite shape like that, who's big and lean, you know, and you show it to an experienced person like us, we go, damn, what did you eat today, man? That's what I want to know. I don't want to know exactly what you've eaten for the last week, for the last month, whatever, and what that looks like. You show that picture to a new person who doesn't understand or hasn't been in this. It's like, oh, what drugs are you on?
Yeah.
It's the food, man, and it's the capacity to take that food in and utilize it. And like, when we were talking about that How to Be a Monster podcast, that's a secret, man. That's a secret. If you want to get big, you want to put on a bunch of muscle, or even for us, not so much you, but me, I'm at the point where I'm having to fight for muscle again, this keeping it on, when you get older, it ramps up, the effort level goes way up. I'm not on cruise mode anymore. I'm having to fight to keep on what I have. And to do that, it's how much food I can process without getting fat. And to do that, you have to increase your capability, your capacity to take in food like that and not get fat. And to do that, one is, we talked about a bunch of strategies, but one of the best ways is to work out twice a day and
Yeah.
create 2 windows for you to process more food, which should be ideally fucking beef and rice or chicken.
Yeah. Cause like, I mean, I pretty much have about 6 meals a day, sometimes 7 if I'm not sleeping as much. But dude, I mean, 3 to 4 of those will be, regular meals. And then the other 2 to 3 have to be protein shakes for me. Cause I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm bloated. I mean, it's just so hard for me to get, especially that fit, that actual food, man. And even
Yeah.
like, like one of my meals, like 6 eggs and avocado, man. I'm so stuffed, dude. Right when I get done, and like,
That's a lot, bro.
yeah, yeah. Or when it comes to like, I eat like get a pound of beef, split that into 3 burgers, and I'll just eat a burger at a time. But I'm like, even that, like, I can't fathom trying to eat 6 actual physical full meals a day without supplemental shakes, you know. And yeah, I saw one of your tweets where it was something along the lines of, I don't know if you're thinking about like, taking anabolics, like, and you're wanting to compete, like, dude, if you can't, and I'm paraphrasing here, but tear up a natural show first, like, don't even consider it because those aren't the, they're not the cure all like so many people just have that assumption of.
Yeah, man, we were talking about that. Somebody posted about a steroid, one of his buddies died. And, I had written a piece on that too, of like, how to really determine if you should use, or if you want to use drugs, what you should consider beforehand. And if you don't have those considerations in place, you're dumb. You're going to hurt yourself, you inevitably, and that's what happens to most people. But and one of those criteria I have is like, how long have you been lifting, and why you're going to take it. Okay, well, I'm going to take it because I want to be a competitor, I want to be elite. Okay, but if you can't train hard enough, and you can't diet hard enough, and figure those two out to get successfully lean, which I would consider sub 5% body fat, without enough muscle on it for you to be semi-competitive in whatever class that you're going to compete in naturally, then you have no business taking drugs. I mean, in my opinion, you're going to put yourself at risk, because no matter what, no matter, even if you follow all the things that I've suggested, and you've thought about every consideration, your cardiovascular health, your kidney health, your genetics, everything that you can look at, you're going to monitor everything, and you handle the drugs well, you take the anabolics, and you don't have a lot of side effects, your blood pressure doesn't go up, your lipids don't crash, all these things that you determine, okay, I'm a good candidate, I can take them safely, they don't seem to be affecting me negatively, I'm going to start at the lowest dose possible to get result, I'm going to do all these things. But if you haven't figured out how to train and diet effectively naturally, you're not going to fucking figure it out automatically by being on anabolics. In fact, it makes it much harder. So when I was competing naturally, it was simple, man. You would lose the body fat, fill up a little bit of glycogen, and you'd fucking be great for stage. You'd drink some water, pee it out, and you'd be dry. Add one anabolic, add anything to that mix, and that takes simple addition and makes it fucking calculus. And that's why when you go to a state level show or an NPC show where guys are using drugs, half of them look shitty, because nailing that condition and nailing all that stuff becomes exponentially harder with any type of drugs on board. And so if you can't figure it out, and you don't have a base doing all that stuff and figuring out how to eat, and how to increase your capacity for food and not get fat and all those things we talked about, if you can't figure out doing that naturally, then you just shouldn't take drugs, man. You shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if it's truthful or not, and I don't know why they wouldn't be open and honest about it, especially now with it being just more socially acceptable. But when you hear, now that like guys like Dorian Yates or Jay Cutler or Ronnie Coleman will actually go through and talk about their cycles, like at their peak, dude, it really is not what I mean. I know people that are just competing in state level shows that are taking more. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, again, I mean, dude, like and it was that picture that you posted, Ronnie Coleman. I don't know I couldn't tell if that was legit
No,
or if you
that's
were being
true.
sarcastic.
No,
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
that was him natural.
Yeah. And I love this story too. So, and I don't want to go into it, but I have, like everybody, I have the inside source with that. And so there was a time in the internet where there's a very close knit group of people. And one of those people, I don't want to go into it, but very good source, not only from that, but from people who know, everything, guys who, whatever, very close. Um, and if you look at the history of Ronnie Coleman and the pictures of him before he even started lifting, the day that he walked into a gym, the guy was like, or no, he got approached somewhere, and the guy who owned the gym was like, "Hey man, you should compete in bodybuilding." He's like, "What's that?" He's like, I'll give you a free membership if you want to compete. So that's why he started lifting. He's like, oh, the free membership. The guy won, he won the show from barely lifting. He looked like he could win the show before he even picked up a weight. That's the type of freak, that guy, what you're talking about. And so he went from placing very low, he was a competing pro, he turned pro, great looking body in my opinion, looked great. I think his last placing, that picture I had, he was like 13th in the Olympia. And then the next year he won the Olympia. And not only did he win it, but he won it by a long shot. And then he launched into outer space where he was so freaking big, nobody could even come close. There was absolutely nobody that was even close. And so how did a guy that's been lifting at that point for, God, I don't know, it was like 15, 16 years and competing and doing, access to all that stuff. How did he go from being, discernibly smaller and different, and then 1 year becoming like the biggest guy, and then beyond that, year after year, turning into a monster that nobody's ever gonna, I don't think anybody's ever gonna touch that or get close. I mean, a genetic freak. It wasn't because he found some secret drug or some secret chemist in Bulgaria made a special mix for him. That's when he started using steroids. And he tells that story, and it's not like he jumped on some, hey, take a boatload. He took something that a high schooler would take, literally, testing some D-ball. And the guy, that's what happened, and it's hard to believe. I know it is. It's very hard to believe. And if you haven't been exposed to it personally or seen people like that in firsthand in your life, or that you've been very close to and had access to the inner workings of them, it's hard to believe, man. And it's, for a guy like me, it's heartbreaking, but it also helps me sleep at night to know that, well, it doesn't matter if I did something different. If I ate more broccoli, if I did more cardio, if I lifted heavier, there's no way that, I didn't miss anything. I didn't have the right parents.
Yeah. 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 It is crazy, dude. I mean, cause I remember seeing pictures of him like playing college football, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what they were, but I'm assuming he had 20-inch arms at that point, just
Yeah.
insane, dude.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about guys that, well, Phil Heath was another one. Him playing basketball in college looked like he's been, and he wasn't lifting weights then. Looked like he'd been doing dumbbell presses with, military presses, 500, with 500 pounds. His shoulders were so jacked, his arms were huge, never touched a weight, until after he stopped playing basketball, as the story goes. But, that's the kind of guys that they're just made for it. And again, a lot of people that you see on social media, and you see these pictures, and you're trying to compare yourself with them, or think about how do I look like them? Probably not gonna. And you have to be realistic with that. So a lot of those guys are just genetically they're built for it, and things happen when they touch the weights. That doesn't mean that you can't improve your own physique, and that doesn't mean that you can do all these things, but you have to be realistic. And when you're talking about taking drugs and all that, why risk your health, and why trade later years in your life for that, especially when you're not gonna be in contention to be in the top 5 in the world or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I mean, I look at it from like a business aspect. I mean, it's like me trying to compare myself to Elon Musk. It's like, like the dude, it's, there's just some, brilliant motherfuckers out there that are out of this world that, no matter what I do, and some people might call that a limiting belief, but, again, dealing realities, no matter what I do, I'm not going to replicate and become an Elon Musk. Doesn't mean I can't improve my businesses. Doesn't mean I can't become more intelligent. Doesn't mean I can't be more successful. But, there's only one Elon Musk out there right now.
I would say that his brain just is different. It just processes information different. And then you add in all the effort along with it, and the commitment and the discipline, then it's almost untouchable. And that's like a Ronnie Coleman. Not only was he a genetic fucking alien, a freak, but I can tell you for a fact, when his coach wrote down, hey, Ronnie, eat 8 chicken breasts and 8 baked potatoes, that's exactly what he would eat. It could be eat 3 cans of tuna and a bag of cat food. That's what he would eat, period. There's no discussion. And so
Yeah.
you add that, and you've seen it, everybody's seen his workouts by now. You know, that plus the genetics, yeah, good luck, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad seeing, and he's got like the best attitude of any human being on the planet, but seeing what's transgressed of, you know, all the botched back surgeries that he's had to lead to where
Yeah.
he is, man. I mean, have you seen his most recent documentary?
There's another one.
Well, I mean, it's several years old, but it's showing him
Yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah. Well, and part of that was he didn't really listen to, some of that advice either. He'd have a back surgery like his first one, and he went in and, started pressing some insane amounts on leg press again and broke rods in his back. You can't, but that's there's no quitting the guy,
Yeah.
there's no consideration. And that's part of what made him who he was. I mean, he's, that's something that he just built in him, and he wasn't ever going to stop.
Yeah.
So you gotta respect it. Gotta respect it.
Yeah. And I understand how tempting it can be. Like, to your point, okay, if you're not going to be in the top whatever in this space, like, why even consider it? And I understand the temptation of it, and I mean, because
Yeah,
I've had some experiments with it. But very quickly it was like, dude, this shit doesn't last. Like, if you don't have those good foundations, like all the shit that you're on, you blow up, like it goes fast the second that you're off. And it doesn't. So
yeah.
then,
Well, and that's another thing too. I think I addressed that in this piece I wrote as well. But if you don't, it's not something you just cycle and then oh, I'm going to do a cycle and I'm going to put on 6 pounds or 8 pounds of muscle and I'm going to keep it. No, you're not. Especially if you don't have a training base of 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you have your nutrition and everything else dialed down. You're not going to keep that. And then I mean, why cycle off? What are you going to do if you're not going to be, it depends what your goal is, but mine was to compete as a super heavyweight, and you don't do that by doing 6 weeks and going off, man. It just
yeah,
doesn't happen. And so then you're increasing your body weight, and how do you keep that on, and how do you maintain it? And you have to stay there for a long time. So most of the guys that I know that were my size, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", and closing on 280 on stage at 275, 280 plus and above, it didn't happen overnight. I mean, you had to gradually get to that weight, that 300-pound mark, and be there for a decade for it to really stick, and that's being on everything under the sun. And so it's not, there's a lot of misconceptions out there, man. There's a lot. And that's one of them. It just, it helps. It's a recovery tool. Will it help you put on more muscle than you would have naturally? Yeah, but you have to have everything else in place too. Will it have consequences for your health? Yes, it will, no matter what. Even if, I mean, I could go down that list too of all the people that I know have died and, all that stuff. But, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, that's for sure. But back to your point, increasing, can you increase your workload and your capacity to do these long workouts and these high volume workouts? Yeah, you could. In the way that I train, or the way that I like to train, I train to positive failure. But if you were going to go short to that, like if you were going to do something like the German volume 10 sets of 10, and you hit that 10th rep and you really had 10 more left, yeah, there's ways to curb that where you can increase your volume and have a longer workout, hit different muscle bellies, or more muscle bellies, hit different angles of the muscle with a lot of volume. And can you recover from that and not be destroyed? Probably. So there's a couple different ways there, but again, it always comes back to balancing the stimulus with recovery. So you can only recover from, what you only want to work out and stimulate what you can recover from.
yeah, yeah. And you said something that I think is important earlier, where like, really understand, okay, why am I going to go down this journey in the first place? Because I mean, like, for me, even when I was taking it, like, it was never to go out there and try to become a pro bodybuilder or whatever. It was just like, dude, I just wanted to look better and feel better, be stronger, and I don't know, see what it was like to get kind of more yoked and feel whatever. But then as I learned later on, I was like, I think part of it for me was just a cop out of, not doing what it took to just get lean enough to fucking look good, poolside. Because
Yeah.
now if it really is just around, hey man, I just want to look really good when I go to the pool or go to the beach, which is probably what most dudes want, like to get that attention. Like
Yeah.
it's fucking pretty easy to do without being on shit.
And let's be honest, 95% or 97% of the attention that you're going to get is from other dudes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it never works out the other way.
yeah.
But yeah, one of the other stories that I like to tell a lot, 9 o'clock or 6 o'clock at North Gold's in Las Vegas, workout, with, I don't know, if there's 30 guys in there, 90% of them were on anabolics and maybe 4 look good, had physiques that you would want. And the rest, you took it and didn't have the rest figured out. And they just look like, bulky puffy guys. That few of them were strong, some of them weren't, but nonetheless, all risking their health, for really no reason.
Yep. Yep. So then speaking of being on stuff and going all natural, man, it looks like Liver King's on that journey now, huh? I know we did a podcast about him when he got popped. I mean, I don't know if you've been
Uh,
following it, but and again, I don't know, I mean, I was one that believed that, hey, man, maybe this guy could have been natural, just to the point of Ronnie Coleman, like most people, if he would have came out and been like, I'm natural, most people have called bullshit to that. So, I understand there's genetic freaks out there. So, so I was one that wasn't just like pointing the finger, oh, that dude's on shit, and there's no way,
Yeah,
I was like, hey, maybe there is a way, and I'm the same way with Michael Hearn. I'm like, there are just some freaks out there, and who am I to say I don't know? And but it seems like from kind of the side by side comparisons I'm seeing, especially with that like that blockiness, it seems like, I mean, you can see some differences, man. Have you been following it, paying attention to
I
it?
haven't I haven't looked. The last one I saw, I was like, I've been clean for 3 weeks, and I'm like, it's not even out of your system, dumbass.
Yeah,
But I wouldn't, when we talked about it, I would have looked at him before and thought that he was on something, but not very much. And that was the case. He was on a pretty low dose of test, a little bit of other stuff. The growth hormone that he was on probably added to the recovery, and that allowed him to probably have the capacity for work that he did, because he would do 2 workouts a day, drag around the sled, do all that shit. And that probably had a pretty big role in that, and maybe kept his muscles a little bit fuller, but he didn't look like he was on a bunch of stuff. But just because of what he did and how intensely he worked out, I was pretty sure he was on something. But I wouldn't expect him to really lose a bunch of weight. I would expect, I'll have to look at the pictures, but I would expect that you're going to see a little less hardness, a little less fullness. I bet he has to cut back his volume and capacity for work quite a bit, which he's probably discovering. I don't know if he's gone into that. And as time goes on, you're going to see that continue, and probably, I would say it's going to probably take, you know, it depends on what his advisors are advising him to do, if they're prolonging the process, or if they just, which I'm sure they're doing, instead of just going cold turkey and going for a fast reset. So you're probably not going to see a complete crash and, restart of his system for maybe a year, and
oh,
so
good.
yeah, because they're probably got him on HCG and all this other shit that's going to kind of delay the process of him crashing and his own system having to turn back on 100%. And so I wouldn't expect to see a real difference for 7-8 months, to where we have side by side pictures if he's being genuine, and go, oh, okay. But it really depends too. If he's intelligent and he's able to kind of adjust to the new work capacity, and you know there's some other strategies, but being that lean too, I think it's going to take a little while, but we should see a difference here coming up on 6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah, because somebody like him, like he was never. I mean, he looked big, but because he's always so shredded. But
Yeah.
he's what, 5'7", and I think at his peak he was like 190.
Yeah, I thought he was a little shorter than that, but yeah, he wasn't holding a bunch of muscle, but he looked bigger because he was shredded,
Yeah,
and he wasn't that tall. But and I'm not disparaging him with that. You can't help that. But if you saw him in a shirt standing next to you, you'd be like, okay. And if you saw him moving weight at the gym, you'd probably be like, okay, you know, but without a shirt on, yeah, he just contest shape,
Yeah.
just ripped. And that being outdoors, and it adds to the whole look, man. You look much bigger, just like you started the podcast with.
Yeah.
The leaner you are, the bigger you look. Um, so I don't know. It's interesting. I would expect to see more drastic changes the longer we go. And then, it's going to depend too if he has a full recovery, if his system kicks back on. And I don't know why he started that dose in the first place. I don't know where he started from, if he was actually clinically in need, if he was actually low. He had lab numbers and symptoms and had an actual clinical need for TRT, or he just started it. I don't know those things, but that's all going to have a factor in, what the recovery is going to look like and what his system kicking back on looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, it got so blown up about, oh, he's spending 10 grand a month or whatever the amount was, but, no, we broke down this. Now, I don't have the experience with growth personally. I mean, I did it. I don't know. I was doing like 4 IUs every other day, I think but it was just like one time for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And then I stopped. So it was never enough volume to like see a difference in it. But, and I could add bunk shit. I don't know. Got
Yeah.
it from a friend that had a friend, kind of a thing. It wasn't, you know, and it was, I mean, well over a decade ago. But I look at the TRT, man, like I'm on 0.8 milligrams a week. He was on 0.6,
Yeah.
so looking at that, I'm like, shit, like this is, so yeah, it will be interesting, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like he was on, 300 milligrams of test a week and a couple tabs of D-ball or something that you would expect. Okay, dude looks big. I mean, I would like to see him on that, because then you would see a difference. You would actually look at him and go, yeah, fuck. Yeah, dude, right. Yeah, that's not liver. And so, maybe that was part of the plan too. He just wanted to take enough to, increase his recovery so they could have the capacity to do those type of workouts, because that was his program too, right? You want to do these primal tenets, and you're going to have the capacity to do this. And then he had that challenge that he did. I don't know. I don't know what the strategy was, but it certainly wasn't, whoever was advising him, it certainly wasn't like, hey, take this and you're going to get huge, man.
Yeah.
I think it was a plan that way, because I can't believe anybody would be that stupid. But I think that was, if I was designing that or trying to consult him, I mean, it would be like, hey, I just want you to recover. This will help you recover, get a little bit leaner, keep that capacity, keep some muscle on, in this, and be able to train like this without it being so obvious. And that would be kind of more the stack that makes sense of what he was taking.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you listened to any of his long form podcasts, like, as all that was coming out. And, I mean, obviously, he had a lot of haters, through that process. And, to me, I try to remain neutral of that. I think, even on our podcast, I was like, I'm still a fan. I don't, like, okay, I don't, people are so hard to judge other people, but it's like, okay, like you're telling me you're so fucking perfect, right? Like, it's easy to point fingers, right? But then, like he was talking about, a lot of it was just to get through those, 2-a-day grueling, intense workouts. And then he went
Yeah.
into it, as a young kid in his childhood and being bullied so much. And then he discovered working out in strength, and it gave him kind of, a little bit of meaning and just help them combat. So, and he admitted, I mean, there's some mental things there that he's got to do some work on, because for whatever reason, he's like, dude, if I don't kill myself for, 2 hours in the gym every day, like I feel like a worthless human being. And it probably
Mhm.
retraces back to, I mean, I'm not Dr. Phil here, but, I thought
Yeah.
it was pretty cool that he opened that up. And he was like, part of him wanting to go natural, because I don't think anybody would have really cared at that point. Okay, the bag's out, who cares, right? But he was like, look, I got to deal, like I got some bad demons in my head, and I got to figure out how to deal with them. And getting off of this will force me to feel like, uncover that, why do I need to kill myself to this intense level in the gym twice a day to feel like I'm worth anything? And if I don't, I feel worthless. Like there's things to unpack there. And again, I don't know if it's all show, but
Yeah.
that is pretty interesting.
Yeah, man. Well, I wouldn't, there was no way I would have been able to do the workouts that I used to do without something that I was battling in my head, and that, we've talked about this before, but man, I don't know, without having that mental fuel, I don't know how you do those type of workouts, because I had seen people work out all over California, Arizona, and across the country in Columbus, and professionals and really strong people. And, the workouts that I used to do were some of the most intense that I'd ever seen. And those matched with the guys that I thought was, probably the king of that, a guy named Curtis Leffler. And, I couldn't have done that without battling some major shit and having to get out of my head, and Ronnie Coleman said it too, man. He's like, you just don't, a sane person doesn't want to go squat 700 pounds. It's, you have to have something wrong. And I think you do. It's like anything, man. Whatever drives you in business to be relentless, and whatever drives anybody, you have to have rocket fuel to do that, man. Whether that's
Yeah.
trauma, whether that's whatever that drive is, you have to have it. And if you don't, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. The
Figure
most
it
successful
out.
people on this planet are the ones that, are usually the most damaged, dude. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had friends and people close to me like, oh man, you should go down this spiritual journey and whatever. I'm like, no, dude. I mean, I accept and I love the fucked up parts about me that make me have to, never like, I don't want to lose that edge, man. I don't want to like
Yeah.
that chip on the shoulder that, hey, I got, it's like, yeah, I'm okay with being, damaged because I'd rather create what I want to create than be mentally at peace with, you know,
Well,
with
and I told you too, I'm glad I met my dad. I am. So I'm not gonna make it sound like I'm not, but like 4 or 5 days after the first time I met my dad, and this was what, like 6 years ago or something, maybe 7 years ago. I went to the gym and I was like, okay, man, turn it on. Like, oh, oh fuck, something's gone. What happened? And it's almost it. You hear some of the people talk about their ayahuasca journey or other shit like that, or whatever. But something was gone, and I had to completely fucking rebuild all of that in my head to be able to go. And I still don't have it. I still don't have that.
yeah,
Whatever that was that I cultivated and used and coveted and let out just a little bit out when I started to work out, and had control over. It's just like, almost like a blacksmith when you get your forge, and it's roaring hot and it's, controlled. I mean, I could shut it off and save it till next time and then open it up. And that was gone, like fucking gone. Like it was surgically removed from my head. And I didn't realize that was that would have done that, but I had to completely retool my mindset to be able to go in and do a fucking heavy set. And shit, if that was taken away from me in my 20s, I don't know what would happen to me.
yeah,
But that was precious jet fuel,
yeah,
so.
yeah. So kind of last topic question for you. I know we've talked about this on previous podcasts, but it's something I've just seen trending more and more and more. Even like I heard something of Michael Hearn plugging on one of his podcasts now, which is all these, peptides. It seems to be the new big thing. Everybody's talking about peptides,
Decade.
worth the shit, just another gimmick, the next, fad thing. What's your, high level kind of 2 cents?
There's a lot of peptides out there that do some cool stuff, man. There really is, and we've talked about it before, but there's stuff that, primes the growth hormone, and there's stuff that, can supposedly aid in healing. And there's now longevity ones, and there's one, all kinds of stuff. But I would encourage people to try those. If you have a practitioner that's going to prescribe them, or somebody that's going to advise you and you try them out, try them out. If you don't notice anything, then don't take them again. I've used a lot of them. The growth hormone kind of ones that are supposed to help your body produce more growth hormone or precursors and all that. I just never really got a big enough boost out of to think that I was going to continue them. The inflammation ones like TB4 and BPC 157, it's hard to say, man, because when I've torn a muscle or I have an injury, I don't really have a baseline to compare to. Oh, hey, I know that this takes exactly 6 weeks until I can do this. No, I had the injury. I used all those peptides on it. Did it heal faster? I guess. I don't know. Did it help? It's really hard to say. So for a lot of those, I think that, and I'm going to stand by this again, but most of the people that are selling them swear by them. Most of the people who have tried them with controlled variables and, with critical thinking aren't so big on them. I mean, I'm really on the fence on a couple of them, and then most of them I would never use again. Like melanotannin, I'm a fan of, because I live in South Florida. I'm fortunate enough to get out on the water on a regular basis. I scuba dive, all that. I'm also a fucking white boy, and I'm just not made to be in the sun. My body doesn't produce enough melanin. But when I take melanotannin, that stimulates my body to make more melanin than it ever normally would, and that helps me deal with being in the sun. And so that's a peptide that I believe in. It has a use. I tried it. I see a result. I can measure that. And so, there's all kinds of peptides now. I was reading about a couple more. Yeah, I don't remember the names of them, but they look really interesting, man. But I would try them for myself and kind of see if you can evaluate if they're actually effective or not.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like to ask you, because I know that, number one, you're not, like you said, the guys that are selling are usually the ones that are, they have a financial, reason. But then, you're one that, at least in my experience with you, like you've never advised anything that you haven't personally experimented with,
Yeah.
and I get it. We're all, our bodies are different. So maybe, you respond differently than I might or whatever, but at least at
Sure.
that point, you're like, hey man, I've tested this. Here's the results that I've gotten. And cause it's like, I know we've talked about what that semi-glutide, and the things
Yeah.
that, but man, I can't go on Twitter any day, any given day without hearing people just praising that as like the next biggest fucking most amazing thing, but then, talking with you about it, it's like, hey man, like, it served its purpose, but then your body builds up that tolerance and then it gets expensive. And then, when we broke that down in their podcast, but then, right away, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like that's something that from my conversation with you, that I would never do or recommend. And maybe there's people that it might be for, but it's like you go on, like if I go on my Twitter feed right now, I'd be thinking that shit, that's like the next greatest thing to exist.
Yeah. Well, I kind of teased about it, and I think I'm going to write up something as a resource. But I'm going to start. I envision that most of my nutritional consults, starting anytime soon and for the foreseeable future, are going to be helping people kind of come back from semi-glutide use, because it will turn you skinny fat unless you have your shit together. Meaning, if you don't set aside to say, hey, okay, my hunger is going to be completely removed. I'm not going to feel like eating at all. What are the consequences if I do that? Okay. And how do I take advantage of that then to build better habits, to support the muscle I have, to support the body I have, without turning into, total skinny fat? How do I do that? And so that comes back down to, hey, if you could totally remove hunger, Josh, totally remove hunger. You're not hungry during the day. What's that an opportunity? For me, that's a perfect opportunity to say, okay, well, I'm going to eat 1,800 calories. And those are going to be from chicken breast, white rice, and broccoli. And I'm going to eat this many meals. That's exactly what I'm going to eat, because if I do that, my body's going to look like that. And if I remove hunger and I don't feel like eating, then I don't care. I'm going to be very regimented about it. And I won't have a temptation to eat Doritos or to have a donut or to crave carbs or to do whatever, want a cookie. But if I know if I take in this food, I'm going to have this body. And so I think it's a great tool in that aspect, but people aren't using it like that.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, I'm not going to eat. And then I had one meal. And then, you talk to him 4 weeks later, and you're like, what happened, man? Well, I'm skinny fat now. What do I do? Well, all right, man, should have fucking listened to me. You can't, even if you have 30 pounds of fat to lose, you can't just not eat. It's going to have consequences. And the main one is you're going to break down muscle tissue too, and bone
Yeah.
density. So I don't know, but again, it's a great tool. But if you pick up a hammer and try to drive a screw in with it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's but a lot of the peptides are like that too. Some people get something out of the growth hormone releasing peptides. Hey, if you do, knock yourself out. But try to isolate what it's doing for you, try to identify what it's supposed to do, and then how to use that effectively.
Yeah. 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 It's, I mean, because if you look at like, okay, a lot of people that can jump into that kind of shit are not the ones that are typically the most disciplined to begin with. And
Yeah.
not trying to generalize, but I mean, it just, if you start looking at it, and the scary thing is, it's like, okay, we had meaning we, like my wife and I had one of our doctors that were just like recommending, here's a list of all these peptides, we recommend. And, then I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I did is I threw the list to you. I'm like, dude, like any of these you recommend? And it was just essentially, like, no, dude. But that's the scary thing is, here's, this quote unquote expert concierge physician, but they're just, throwing this stuff. That's like, it was pretty obvious that they probably don't have the education on this stuff. So how many people are getting, prescribed this stuff? Yeah, it seems like it can be morphed into this big mess.
Yeah, man. It's a business. You have to consider that. And, that's with everything, man. You just have to be wary of that, not that it's good or bad. And that physician may believe in those things, they may have gone to a course and somebody really sold them on it, but have they used it? Did they feel something out of it? No, but there's a demand for it. They offer it because people come in and ask for it, but that doesn't, it's neither here nor I don't know. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
they work.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess it's just, wasn't too long ago, all these doctors were, promoting and all about oxy, oxy, so
Well, the good
right.
thing is, most of the peptides are fairly inert,
Yeah.
Fairly low risk. I don't think anybody's ever really fucked themselves up with peptides. And
Yeah.
so it's pretty low risk, right? So if you're going to try something, yeah, try it out, but be vigilant. I mean, what are you expecting to see from it? Control the variables. Okay, did that happen, or did I get anything out of it? It's kind of at that point a yes or no. Okay, I did. Why not? Was I using the correct dosage? Was I timing it right? Did I set up the variables correctly? Did I eat? Did I, whatever it was, and evaluate. It's the same thing with supplements, man. We preach this too. If you take a nootropic and you don't feel it, did I take enough? Yes, I took the full dose. Okay, then you bought a bad product, man. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. It's not for you. Don't buy another one.
Yep. Yep. Awesome stuff. And then Jim, if anybody that's watching or listening to this, man, if they want to, follow you, or maybe they have some interest in, reaching out to you for, some of your coaching and stuff, like where's the best place to do that at?
We could post the my Twitter link on the video, but that's
Okay.
probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
All
Man.
right. Well, those that are watching and listening, as always, we truly appreciate you guys being here and all your support. And Jim, as always, man, it's always awesome jamming.
It's always a fun
Appreciate you being
discussion.
here.
Yeah, man. Same.
All right, you guys. Well, we will see you next time. Peace.